Living Local presents Biz Buzz 413 with your host, Jill Monson.
And before we get started with today's episode of Biz Buzz 413, a couple quick thank you shout outs. Tiger Web Designs, thanks for making us look awesome on the World Wide Web. A thank you to my company, Hop More, confidence coaching and training done differently. And of course, a huge thank you to livinglocal413.org.
Welcome to Biz Buzz 413. I'm your host, Jill Monson, and I hope by now you know this, but just in case you don't, in every episode, what we're doing, the point, the purpose, the reason isn't just for me to talk, although I'll do that any day, all day long if I can. Now, the purpose is that every episode of Biz Buzz 413, we are trying to spotlight the voices that are shaping the business landscape of Western Massachusetts, from the bold entrepreneurs and the seasoned experts to the emerging leaders and those community champions. So we are constantly looking for ideas. I want you to share with me what you're thinking. If you want to be interviewed, if you know somebody, if there's a topic you want to hear about, whatever it is, send it over. The more, the merrier. You can do so by visiting the website, livinglocal413.org/bizbuzz. Or if you prefer, email me directly. You can do so at BizBuzz, which is one Z and then two. So BIZBUZZ, BizBuzz at livinglocal413.org. I'd like to give a special thanks to Home City Development. They're our Biz Buzz 413 groundbreaker sponsor. And I'm sure you know this part. This show is part of the Living Local 413 initiative, which was founded by local entrepreneur Bill Cole. And today, he's my guest. Hey, Bill.
Hey, Jill.
I have been waiting to get you on. You are busier than trying to track down the Pope. Goodness gracious, sir. Founder and president of Living Local 413, Bill Cole. Thanks truly for being with me. I appreciate it. I'm excited to have you because we just hit 1,000 downloads.
Yay!
I feel like we need like a marching band. Like I'm gonna go get the Commerce marching band or something. Yeah, like I'll call Tad at Central and be like, Tad, I need your band. Yeah, we hit 1,000 downloads of the Biz Buzz 413 podcast, which is pretty remarkable since when we started, like back in the summer, I was like, Bill, who's gonna listen to this? Like 6 people, and look, we have 1,000 downloads. It's awesome. So first things first, we're gonna talk about living local. That's why we're here, and that's why I have you. But I don't know, like I've known you a while, so I've gotten to know you and your wife, Nancy, but
Sure.
I don't know that the whole world knows you as well. So would you just start by telling me a little bit about Bill Cole, the man, behind the brand?
Sure. You mean you want me to talk about myself? Well, okay. So yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't know, and they know what I do nowadays or whatever, but they don't necessarily know the story. So I think it's a good idea. I'll give you the short version because obviously it's been 61 years officially. So what happened was my journey in the Western Mass business community literally started when I was 16. I came up, I was kind of into music, and I was into stereo equipment and electronics and all kinds of things that were certainly popular back then. And the reality is I built myself a pair of speakers. I literally, went through that whole process, built the boxes, did the whole of the carpentry and the electronics and everything. And lo and behold, I had them on and I was showing them off to some of my friends, and some of my buddies kept going, well, yeah, those are awesome, man. How much would you want for those? And that started my whole journey. 20 years later, I had, a pretty big audio video company called Sound Advice Systems. And that was, my baby. That's something I started at a very young age, worked on it for 20 years. It was by far the biggest and best custom audio video company in the area for many, many years. And we had a big showroom down in the Batero and Skolnick building on the 4th floor. It was huge. We had a bunch of guys in trucks out there installing things and so on and so forth. And, again, long story short, the reality is that business came to a point, and the industry came to a point in about 2008, when the housing market crashed.
Yeah.
And, you had all kinds of wireless things happening at that point and so on and so forth. Flat panels were already established and starting to get blown out for cheap. etc. And basically, the last thing that I did for that business, or one of the last things, was create a website for
Ah,
it.
I
And
see the through line. Here we
ah,
go. Okay.
see? And back then, in the 90s, there was no drag and drop. You had to learn HTML and CSS and JavaScript and all that in order to be able to do it. So thank God I did, because once I decided to close that business and just sort of get out of the rat race, if you will, it was kind of like, okay, well, geez, that's all I've done since I was very young. What the heck am I going to do now?
Yeah.
It was a pretty big moment for me in my life. And I struggled for a couple of years trying to figure out what I was going to do, and eventually I landed on the reality that I didn't want to be in that industry anymore. It was already suffering and all that kind of stuff. So basically, at that point, it occurred to me, and my wife absolutely loves and adores tigers. Okay, so I'm building up to something
Okay.
here.
I've always wondered that. Go on. Okay.
Yeah. So she's totally into tigers. So I decided, okay, I'm going to create a website for her, and see if she wants to get into that business or use it for a business or whatever she wanted to do. And as I did that, I started realizing, well, maybe this is the business. You
Wow.
know. And so that's how Tiger Web Design started, and that's how we both make a living still to this day.
I was gonna say that's the thing people don't realize. Like Bill has become
Right.
synonymous with living
Right.
local 413, which is amazing. I mean, you've done what
Hmm.
me as a marketer, that's what you want.
Yep.
You want, that immediate brand
Yep.
recognition, the McDonald's, if you will, and you've got it. Unfortunately, you also, this is a very much of a heartfelt
Yep.
endeavor
Sure.
at this point in time. So there has to be some money, and poor Nancy can't be the only sugar mama in the family. So Tiger Web Design is still going. And when I put out the notes for the podcast, I'll put the
Sure.
website
Yeah, that'd be
link to
great.
Tiger Web Design, because if you're considering, I've used Bill for when I had my old company. I used Bill to build my website, and he's remarkable. He's a great human, and he's very much about user experience, which I think is, if you understand anything about website or just in business. A lot of times websites are built with these plug and plays and these platforms, and they forget user experience. And if your user lands on your website and they
Yeah,
can't find what they're looking for, it doesn't matter. They're going
exactly.
to leave.
And what's interesting about that, and another interesting tie-in, is towards the end of the Sound Advice Systems era, if you will, I was creating with touchpads and touchscreens and things that automated the house and did all kinds of things. So I was literally designing touchscreens and interactive devices, in that first company. So I was working with like Bose and Sony and all kinds of different, manufacturers and so on. And so that kind of traveled over with me, and so I was kind of a UI UX guy before there was such a thing, you know, and that really applies. And Tiger Web Designs is less of a marketing company and more of a web development company, a web design company. So we do web applications, mobile apps, things like that, in addition to websites, and we're very into community building sites and things of that nature. And so what happened was, when I first started that business, my heart was, and it always is and still is, with small local businesses, right? And so I'll never forget, because after the first year, sat down with my accountant, and we had a come to Jesus moment, if you will.
Oh God. I love
And
those. Those
yeah,
those
we've
are
all been
always
there.
great with the accountant.
Yeah.
Like, oh geez, oh boy.
And so he said, basically, hey, if you want to make, 40, $50,000 and do a shit ton of websites for a living, you got it. You nailed it. And I was kind of like, yeah, that's probably actually not what I'm looking to do. And so I spent the next year, and I figured it out. And we specialize basically in medium-sized companies, so not really big ones, but not really small ones either. Just very difficult to do it without a reasonable budget. However, that left a gap, a hole, a need in me to continue to help small businesses on various levels. So I got very involved in the business community. I joined a bunch of chambers. I was literally a member of 5 different chambers. I was on the board and committees, and again, I still am. And that's how I got involved, and that's how I filled that gap in my heart for helping small and local businesses. And then, of course, that's how we started the whole process, and I got involved in living local, basically, at that point.
So next question was supposed to be tell me more about living local, but I just had this like I have to ask because I know the answer and I don't know
Yeah.
if people do. What's your hobby? Because I know you've got a cool hobby that people might not associate with somebody who's like into tech the way you are. So what's your hobby, Bill?
Yeah, well, I'm definitely still into music. And, I was in a band for many, many years locally here, playing out in bars and things of that nature. So music would be number one. And again, that's like a whole different segment of people who know me from that, because we literally started that band. It's called The Wind in a high school. So in 1982.
Wow, what do you do in the band?
I was basically writing and singing and playing the bass. But
Okay.
I was kind of involved in a lot of it. I could play guitar and some other things, not particularly well.
No, I always ask because I have this thing. I used to date a drummer,
Oh
and
boy.
I said I said anytime like if I talk to someone and they're like in the dating phase, I go if you're gonna date a musician, don't date the drummer, date the
Right?
lead singer because they always pack up the quickest.
Yeah. Yeah.
The drummer was always there at the end of the night, and we were
Yeah.
the very last ones, and I was carrying the cowbell.
Yep.
Anyway,
Yep.
let's talk about because we're already like halfway through, and I have this really mean boss.
Yes. He's a stickler.
All right. So Living Local 413 is what's called a regional. And I want to clarify when we say regional, it's in Western Mass means Hamden, Hampshire, Franklin, and Berkshire County. So all four counties. So it's a regional
Yep.
business community development organization. What does that mean in regular speak?
Yeah, so it's seemingly a long title, but what really matters is business community, right? The emphasis on business community. So it's not the SBA. We're not a business development organization per se. We are looking at all four counties of Western Mass, and we are bringing together the business community of that region. Okay, and we're doing it on purpose because. Or doing it out of a lot of research and a lot of experience as to why it needs to be a fully regional four county organization. And that is because things that are state level, what happens? Basically, things go to Boston, right?
Yeah.
We all know that, especially funding and things like that, right? So we all know that story. And if you're trying to do things, and I was involved in so many different things that were, one town, a group of towns, a county, or whatever it is, and it's just not enough. It's just there's not enough people, there's not enough funding, there's not enough resources. And so the sweet spot is on the regional, right? So that's enough people, that's about 40,000 businesses, it's 103 towns and cities, and it's four counties. So that's that we gather that together in a way that's never been done, both online and in person. And now we can start accomplishing things.
Nice. And what do you consider to be, I mean, so let me back up.
Yep.
So go on to livinglocal413.org and check out the website because it's really robust. There's just
Yep.
you're doing a lot. So when you talk about accomplishments and you've done a lot of things, but what do you consider sort of the thing that if I said to you, you only get to tell me one,
Yep.
what's one accomplishment you want people to know?
Well, I think gathering the organization, gathering the community, the business community of Western Mass, and giving us a foundation and the tools to do that, gather us all together in a way that's really never been done. That's a pretty big deal. And we've done it successfully. Last year, we launched our platform, 413online.com. And from between May of last year when we launched and now we have 383 members actively using it.
Wow.
Kind of a big deal.
Yeah, let me tell people too. I call this, and so we're not, Bill and I always talk about this, like whether we're talking about other platforms or we're talking about other geographies outside of Western Massachusetts, we're not anti anything,
Mhm.
meaning we're not anti Boston,
No,
we're not anti Connecticut, but we are pro Western Mass.
that's it.
That being said, we're not anti the big social platforms,
Nope.
but we are also pro the community aspect of the ones you can use locally. So I like to call the 413 online community, I like to call that LinkedIn local?
Yeah,
Because LinkedIn has a purpose,
yeah,
but sometimes I just feel like I'm reading stuff that's like, and lately it's gotten very salesy.
yeah.
So I like that I can go to the 413 online community, which I can do for free.
Yep,
There are paid options to be a member, but I can do it for free
that's right.
and get information about what's going on here.
That's right. You can connect with other people, and there's not a million or millions, literally, of other people vying for attention, right? So right away, right there, that's a huge plus. And then also, I built in all kinds of stuff that I won't go into all the details, but the reality is, you combine that, and then do combine it with our in-person programming, like our 413 Entrepreneur Spotlight Night, which is a
Mhm.
monthly, very successful monthly event that we're holding, that has been a huge hit. We started that in September, and we've sold out 100 people or more every single event, and we're about to have one next month.
I'm coughing. That's why I have to keep muting.
Okay.
I've got this stupid cough. I'm sorry. So you actually kind of there's this is the hard part. There's so many directions. So I want to talk about the 413 Entrepreneur series because it's one of my favorite things. Obviously, hopefully people have gotten a chance to listen. We try when I'm in town, I try to go live, which I'll be doing again for the upcoming February one.
Mhm.
But before we do that, one of the things that I absolutely love that I think for years you and I were talking about was, wouldn't it be really nice if there was a calendar
Yeah.
where all of the things that yeah, like, because it was, I mean, I was an event planner, right? And it
Yeah.
was so frustrating because I'd be like, I don't get it. Why are there 16 things on this one night?
That's right.
And it was because there was no place to go to find them.
Yeah.
So within the 413 Living Local online community,
Mhm.
you have a calendar, correct?
That's correct. So that's one of our programs. It's 413 Calendar, and it's literally all of the business community related events happening in Western Mass all in one place. It's been something everybody's needed for a long time. It's probably one of the most popular things that we do and have. It is literally getting about 5,000 hits on average per week.
Wow.
No kidding. And it's one of three programs that we've built in, and it's by far the most successful. And we update it every single month, and it's good for about 6 months in advance.
I wanted to bring it up because,
Yep.
and the great thing with the podcast is that, we're timely, right? So just recently, like
Mhm.
maybe within the week, a few days ago, somewhere around there,
Yep.
one of my pals, and I adore him, Senator Adam Gomez, he's like, he lives in my hood. Senator Adam Gomez posted on one of the big social platforms and was like
Yep.
something about having a community calendar, like wanting to access a community calendar. And I was like, immediately, I mean, I have the world's tiniest thumbs, Bill. My little thumbs couldn't type fast enough. I was like, there is one. You got to go to 413 calendar on Living Local, blah, blah, blah. Like, so Senator Gomez, if you're listening, I love you. And I'm going to like, maybe I'll make him a special like placard or something that shows.
There you go.
But like, yes, we have it and we want to use it. So,
Yep.
and of course I'm teasing Adam. He is by far one of the best humans, but please start using that calendar. I mean, obviously 5,000 a week is amazing. So people are using it, but I want to get the whole community using it because
Yep.
the idea is this chamber, that chamber, this young professional group, and then this special, educational talk,
Yep.
all going on at the same time.
Yep.
It doesn't work because I can't. I can't clone myself, nor really does anybody want a double of Jill. I mean, come on, really? That would be really dangerous. So you mentioned about the 413 Entrepreneur Spotlight.
Mhm.
And this is something that you are doing in conjunction with Common Capital.
Yep.
So this is a program that you both are really putting forth great effort to make sure that it shows up in the community the way we need it. And we've had some awesome opportunities so far. I mean, I got a chance to meet the whole team from the Massachusetts LGBT. I'm in the community and I can't even say it. The acronyms, the
Yeah.
LGBTQ LMNOP No, that chamber. I met an amazing caterer that came to that event,
Yeah.
and then I've met.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, sad, but E for All at the time, and all these great organizations that have come through.
Mhm.
And it's been really powerful. And you're continuing to do them. February, we have the Black Economic Council of Massachusetts, BECMA or BECMA.
Yep.
That's on February 12th.
Yep.
Would you recommend people register in advance?
Yes, please. Yes. You can go in and RSVP. There's a limited, the place isn't all that limited, but the seating is we can fit about 100 people in there comfortably. So we set the RSVP at 100, and like I said, they've been selling out every single month. So please go in and RSVP. Let us know you're coming. Also, that gets you on the mailing list and some other things. And then, of course, we use those events to help drive and make people aware of the platform too, because the platform, the more we use it, the more we all win. That's a very specific, reality,
Absolutely. I hope that we get to see people come out for the February 12th, because I don't know anything about BCMA. So I'm like,
Yep.
to me, it's
Yep.
even more exciting when you get to learn about an organization that you have zero knowledge of, but they're doing,
Yep.
I mean, they're an organization that is dedicated to advancing the economic well-being of Black businesses and communities across the whole state, but in our region as well. So I'm super excited, because I think right now it's more important than ever in our community.
Yes.
One thing I wanted to ask you, and we've hit 20 minutes, but that's okay. I'll do some interesting bribing of the boss.
I'll put in a good word with the boss.
Thanks. So one of the things when I kind of always have asked you, why living local? Why does living local exist? And you do have this
Yep.
cool graphic on the website that people can see. So they can go to livinglocal413.org right on the homepage and see this kind of
Yep.
very clear imagery. But tell me a little bit more, in your opinion, in your words, why Living Local 413 exists and why it needs to, especially now.
Yeah, I mean the way to explain that easiest is just to kind of run through very quickly the realities of what we're dealing with today, right? So we have political and social unrest, like unbelievable, and add that to economic uncertainty, these incredibly disruptive technologies like AI that are coming. Everybody's really kind of, let's face it, we are all, even those of us that are normally have their head in the sand are still very concerned at the very least, right? And the thing is, what I've had to come to many times personally is, okay, I can't actually solve that, so I need to stop obsessing with all that, right? And being distracted by all that. And so, okay, so the question remains, what can I do, right? Because I'm one of those fix-it people, I got to do something. And so what I ended up focusing on was local. What can we do locally? And there's a lot of work here to do. There's a lot here that's going on that's our towns and cities are not as sustainable, as they need to be. A lot of that is because of dying or dead downtowns, lack of housing. We also have, siloed efforts coming through for all of the different wonderful people and organizations and businesses and things.
Oh, yeah.
That we have here in Western Mass. It's very frustrating how we are not a we. Right. And so we're not acting as a we. We have representatives, we have pods, we have sections of people doing things and so on and so forth, and they're all wonderful. But the reality is we're not working together. And, big business, big government, and big academia cannot do and solve all of our local problems for us. There have always been, historically, and the way that these towns and cities were built in the first place was from the bottom up.
Right.
Right. I mean, you need help from the top down, but you can't just sit there and wait for the top to solve all your problems and make everything go away, and make things work. And here we are, here's the end result of that. Take a look around. And if you like that, great. Just keep doing what you're doing.
Well, and it's funny because I recently interviewed the new Western Mass Economic Development Council president, Aaron Vega.
Yes.
And
yes.
Aaron spoke to that siloed efforts. And he said something, I've always used that analogy or the imagery of the boat, right? Like we all have to be in the boat and row.
Yep,
but he used
right.
this imagery of a rope. And he was describing like the idea that, he said, I don't even think we all have our hands on the rope. It's not about two people tugging in opposite directions or two organizations.
Right.
He said, I don't even think we're on the same rope. And I was like, wow, and that imagery for me really stuck. And I think it's important.
Yep.
I think another challenge and another reason that living local is so important and why you've partnered with organizations like the Springfield Young Professionals is that young people are leaving.
Yes.
Not only is there mass exodus for opportunities and jobs, but it's expensive to live in Massachusetts in comparison to other places. So we have to do this, and there's not enough housing, and there's not. So talk to me a little bit about why that piece of the puzzle is so important to you and to living local.
Well, a lot of the established organizations, and there's wonderful, we have great politicians locally that are always on Beacon Hill fighting for us, and we have, economic development folks here that are always focused on economic development. But the reality is very few, if any, are actually pulling together the entire business community side. And most of these organizations that are established that exist inevitably focus on their membership, right? And their members are the top 5 to 7% of the business
Right.
community. Why? Because they have the money, right? I mean,
Right.
it's not rocket science, right? But unfortunately, that leaves, well over 80% of the business population just completely not involved and not together and not in sync or not, coordinating or any of that kind of stuff. So we really had this need for creating something that literally focuses on just that, and that's what I did. That's what it is.
Well, and I think one of the things that I'm very interested in learning more about, especially because I think if I looked at sort of the puzzle pieces that put together the living local fabric, if you will,
Yep.
one of the newer ones is sort of this villages initiative,
Yep.
right?
Yes.
And I think that really goes to, I've done a lot of work, obviously, with HCDI, Home City Development,
Yep.
being our sponsor. They're all about housing. I've done a lot of work and white papers on the problem that we're having, this
Yeah.
literal shortage in housing, and where this solution may lie. And so I think that the Villages initiative is kind of starting to look at some of that.
Yeah.
We are going to run out of time. So
Yep.
give me a little bit more about what's going on in that area, because I think it's one of your newer initiatives.
It is. And so that's kind of where we're going, right? So where we are is we're gathering and we're continuing to gather the business community, both online and in person, and we'll just continue to do that. But a lot of what's happening on the village side is a very simply the end result of me looking around and looking for these event spaces with co-working spaces and these places where we can all gather and do things and run programs. And the problem has been historically that those are not self-sustaining. So the end result is, that gets funded by the government or whoever, and some really great people with great intentions, try to do their best and do that for a year or two or whatever it is, and then it just fails because it's just not self-sustaining. It's something that relies on those grants and things almost solely. So what we're going to do is we're looking at a concept where we take a large enough space, either a piece of land or a building, and we literally do it in a way that builds out all that, hopefully on Main Street or certainly in downtown, and adds enough housing or includes enough housing in the equation to help pay for that space.
Interesting. I can't wait. And I know that we have, Scott is working on that project with us.
Yeah.
There's so much going on, and this could probably be like a 16-part episode, but then,
Yeah.
obviously I would be in big trouble from the boss. But I recommend just go to livinglocal413.org and
Yeah.
just click around, check on click on the tabs, become a member. With that, sometimes people think like, oh, I've got to spend a lot of money. There are options for you to do so as a business,
Yeah.
but you can become a member with no cost. Before I let you go, what's the one final thing you just want to make sure that people are aware of? Because I don't know when your schedule will ever allow me to have you back on the show. So
Yeah.
what do you want people to know, Bill?
I want you to go to 413online.com, and I want you to understand that you can join that for free as an individual member. So in other words, you yourself, as Jill, can be a free individual member. And then there are options, as you mentioned, to put your business on there. There is a charge for that, but it only starts at $150 a year for a micro business level.
And if Pop More,
Yep.
my company, can afford,
Yes.
I mean, so like I'm a tiny business right now.
Yep.
I mean, I am taking clients. So if you're interested, Pop More does coaching and facilitating in the, so but yeah, we joined as a small business member.
Yep.
So you can afford it. It's worthwhile because it gets that, you give back to the hard work that's being done for the organization. So thank you, Bill. 413online.com is where people can go to sign up for the community. And of course, the main website, livinglocal413.org. I'll put all of this into the chat to the best of my ability. And thank you for carving out time to be here with me today.
All right. Thank you, Jill.
livinglocal413.org is the host, and I'm so grateful that we got to have Bill Cole today. The podcast is Biz Buzz 413, and I am your host, Jill Monson. Once again, a huge thank you to Home City Development. They're our Biz Buzz 413 Groundbreaker sponsor. And stay tuned because we have new sponsorship opportunities coming your way. To learn more about the show or share your ideas and to get involved or become a guest, please email me at bizbuzz@livinglocal413.org. And as I wrap up, I do every show by saying the same thing. You're going to go to bed tonight and you're going to wake up in the morning, and I know it's supposed to be like almost single digits. That's okay, because you're going to wake up in the best part of the country right here in the 413. Have an awesome day.
Biz Buzz 413 was brought to you by Living Local.